It's KJ Carson on WEEI.
You know, if Gottlieb still is doing his radio show and is coaching, then he probably feels that somewhere his money isn't tying together. Now, how do I know this factually? I don't necessarily know this, but we're just going to go along with the theme about him saying Jaylen Brown doesn't want to play for a white head coach, which I think is absolutely asinine to say. But we're in an asinine time. This is the crap that you get coming out of people's mouths, right? Because he can't be checked. Now, what if someone, let's say Stephen A. Smith said something like that. What is the narrative then?
Jaylen Brown, the rumor is done playing for white coaches. Doug, very short notice. Greatly appreciate you joining us.
When Brad kind of kicked himself upstairs, it was during the time of all the protests and all the other stuff, right? It was around kind of that same time. And there was just that feeling that Brad's message was coming up short. They kind of started tuning him out. And what I was told from some people was like, dude, I don't think he wants to play for a white coach. And that's a real thing.
Second hour of WEEI here on your Sunday. KJ Carson, 617-779-7937. Text line 37937. Okay, what you just heard there first was my comments on Doug Gottlieb on his show. He's saying that Jaylen Brown didn't want to play for a white head coach. It was part of the KJ and Line show last Sunday. It garnished a lot of response. Chris Curtis of the Greg Hill show reached out to Gottlieb and put him on Monday. Shout out to him for listening to a Sunday morning show. And that's Gottlieb. And here's why I'll give him credit. He's sticking to his story, but I think with some stories, you can't hide behind who you got this from, right? If a player says, hey, I'm not happy with this particular coach, then sure, keep your source anonymous, right? Because if they still play for that particular coach, we know who the coach is. We don't need to know the source because we know the players involved. But if you're going to say, hey, Jaylen Brown doesn't want to play for an entire definition of people, then you probably need to give up a source or at least reveal when and where you were when you received that information. Is this an NBA executive who said this? Is this a team spokesperson who said this? Because if you're going to put that on someone like Jaylen Brown or put that on anybody who's public facing, you need to be more specific than, hey, from what I was told. We're just in an environment right now that people hear voices in their head. You could have been told that way. But to sit there and outwardly say that, hey, that's just what it is, and it was during the time of the protest and everything, then what you're implying is because of what was socially going on, Jaylen Brown suddenly made Brad Stevens part of the target, if you will. I got to be careful with words you use because things going on in the world. Of his overall ire of what was going on socially. And that would imply, watch this, that somehow Brad is insensitive to what Jaylen Brown's desires are as both a player and an employee. This is why you have to be more specific. Not from what I was told. If you were told, hey, I've got a source that's telling me that, Jaylen Brown is not happy with the touches that he's getting, so forth, this, that, and the third. Okay, we can now then go back and look at film and see, or even look at box scores and say, all right, boy, if Brown is only getting like 8 shots a game, 10 shots a game, and he used to get 20 and nothing has really changed, then you can have an argument. This is part of the research part of it. Like, Nico, I don't know if this is producer Nico extraordinaire. Thank you so much for being here on a Sunday morning. I was just having a conversation with the other day, one of my mentors down in Dallas. I said, I was shocked to reveal and learn, like, you don't think because you have a degree, like, my degree in journalism is a Bachelor of Science, where most people think this is an arts job, right? And I was just like, it is a science because you have to be able to show and prove your work, no different than if you're a law student.
Yeah, you have to be able to back it up with facts. And KJ, I'm with you. This is, to put this out there in this time is absurd, to be honest with you. Like, I do think there needs to be, like you said, some sort of revealing the source, because this is quite the implication on Jaylen Brown.
Right, you're saying that Jaylen Brown doesn't want to work for white people. And that's why when Chris Curtis asked him, so are you saying that Jaylen Brown doesn't want to play for Steve Kerr? So he was asking him that question, and Gottlieb pretty much said, well, no, anybody would want to play for Team USA. Then you've just disproved yourself without even realizing you just disproved what you said.
That doesn't add up.
And so in those comments, and you heard me play them back, I said, see, someone like Gottlieb doesn't have to worry about getting checked. You see what happens if Greg Hill decided to take a head coaching job at, I don't know, Emerson decides to start a basketball team, and Greg Hill is the full-time morning host here and the full-time basketball coach at Emerson. You don't think they're pulling Greg into an office and saying, hey, bro, you got to pick one or the other? Even Wiggy wasn't he part-time? Wasn't he a part-time employee when he was the head football coach? Yeah, he wasn't full-time. He was a part-time guy. He wasn't teaching classes. Something different. Gottlieb is the full-time Division I, NCAA Division I head coach and a full-time radio guy. And my comments were, hey, maybe you're doing this because your money ain't tying together. But the reason why I said that is because just the same way I have no proof of that, he has no proof about what he said about Jaylen Brown. And so here's the overarching thing that I probably need to put out there, and I could care less what anybody thinks what I say, but I'm just going to say it. Aren't you kind of tired of people wiping the crap on Boston? Aren't you tired of it? Aren't you tired of it? The little small microaggressions when it comes to what goes on here, really based upon the film from 1974 they run over and over again. Places have issues everywhere. Am I standing on top of a hill for Boston? No, I could barely afford to be on Beacon Hill, let alone stand on top of one. But can't you, the narrative, right? Why couldn't this have been said about somebody else? Why is the conversation when it comes to who doesn't like what and who doesn't like who and this and that and so forth and everything, why is Boston come up?
It is getting old, KJ. It's getting old and it's getting frustrating because times are different. The city is different than what it used to be. So, for people who live here, it's really frustrating to have that label. Well,
yeah, because we all live amongst it, and I live amongst it as well. And why my individual experience may not necessarily be everybody else's. The other thing I could say is I've lived quite a few different places. And this is a conversation I had with the former boss here at the station. And this is when I was doing mornings at another station that's now defunct. It's so defunct now that it's not even in English anymore. And I said, well, with anything else, you'd say, well, you have to follow the money. Like, if there's an agenda to say who's making the decision to say this place is bad and who's behind it, follow the money. So you would say, all right, there are three tenets of money in the U.S. New York City, Los Angeles and Hollywood, and Boston. Right? Because Boston is the oldest of old money that you can have in America. It's the oldest of old. Even down at, even down in what you get in Virginia, it's they're a little more money up there at Plymouth Rock. My point being is this. Boston funded the movie industry when Los Angeles was starting. Where do you think all that money to fund Wall Street comes from? New England. So if you don't like Big Brother because Big Brother has always been kind of pulling the strings, trust me when I tell you, New England still pulls the financial purses of a lot of places in America, and a lot of people don't like it. So when you don't like it, what do? You try and pick something out. It's like the younger brother who likes this girl, the girl likes the older brother, and he says, well, he picks his nose all the time. Just to put a negative spin in there. So that's why it's always the national media. Shoot, all you have to do is go across the Connecticut border, take a ride down 84, go past Hartford, you'd find out some of that bias going on as well about New England. It's because for them, they know money is still here. This is why I've been telling you, man, there's no real desire by the NBA to uplift the Boston Celtics as the face of the franchise. It would usurp everything that people allow the narrative to happen about Boston. I said, it's so bad, right? Like that Bill Russell in his final year in the league, not only as the head coach, wins a championship, but Pat Riley was still at his segregated school in Kentucky, but yet we're supposed to root for the Lakers? Casey Jones, head coach. You know who the first black head coach of the Lakers was? Magic Johnson. But somehow Boston's this problem. It's the money. They've always known that New England has the money. All these other places where baseball's suffering because fans are barely going. Pittsburgh Pirates can't. I mean, they're just happy to have people come to games after July 15th. Red Sox, always somebody there. Highest ticket prices don't matter. People still there. It's a money envy thing. All right, I'll get off my soapbox. Next, we'll talk to Kelsey Nicole Nelson, talking WNBA. Could the WNBA come to Boston? Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese on the court together. Plus, I think they got to get a little bit of love. But right now, it's time to trend with KJ.